we're live on the WP-Tonic podcast, which is WordPress and tech for this week. I'd like to welcome all the guests. I'd like to specifically welcome Tanya Quintieri, who is a translation expert and MrsDivi.com. Introduce yourself to Tanya and tell people how you got on this podcast in the last 45 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Andrew, and everybody else. Like you mentioned, I'm a translator turned web designer, and so I specialize in multilingual websites for my clients. And I do a little bit of hosting and some SEO work. Been doing this since 2002. With WordPress specifically since 2009, I believe, or 10, something like that. Yeah, and how did I end up here? You asked me, and I said yes, love, of course. Always good to see you.
You won't say
right,
that. You won't say that afterwards, though. That's for sure.
So it'll be quite a long show because we're talking about languages and translation at the end of the show. So hopefully you can stick with us on that. And I'll welcome our second female person here, our lovely Stephanie Hudson. How are you, Stephanie? Introduce yourself to the crowd.
Hey guys, I am Stephanie Hudson, owner of Focus WP. Find me at focuswp.co or in my Facebook group, Focus on Your Biz.
Excellent. And our special guest as well today, Chris Badgett from Lifter LMS. Say hello, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrew. It's great to be here. So I'm Chris from Lifter LMS. We help course creators create, launch, and scale high-value online learning platforms.
Perfect.
And where's your glasses, Chris?
What?
Where's the orange? Where's the?
I can get them on.
Vision.
Yeah, I'm running a little late today, so I don't have all my stuff ready. But
now it's Chris Badgett, everybody.
That's why I didn't recognize you, Chris, when I first said hello. John Locke, tell us about you're into SEO as well, aren't you? Tanya's into a bit of that as well.
Yeah, my name is John Locke, and I do SEO mostly for industrial and manufacturing companies.
Perfect, brilliant. And nearly last but not least, Spencer Foreman.
It's Spencer Foreman from WPLungify.com.
Perfect. That and my co-host for today is Jonathan Denwood, the founder of WP-Tonic. Say hello, John.
Hi there, tribe. It's Jonathan Denwood, and we build e-learning websites for e-learning entrepreneurs. Back over to you, Andrew.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right, we've got quite a lot to get through today, but
Oh, sorry, Andrew. Sorry.
But first of all, we're going to visit our sponsor, Castus. And we're back. Right, the first story for the week is, and I think I've got it wrong here, but I'm going to go to, John Carmack. John Carmack issues some words of warning for Meta and its metaverse plans. And we've always talked about metaverse and Facebook and all this kind of stuff. And I want to get from the panel, what do you think about this guy's perspective as he's actually in the business? You know, he's an Oculus consulting CTO. He knows what's going on in the metaverse, if there's ever going to be a metaverse. And I'm going to go to actually John Locke on this one, first of all. What's your view of this particular post?
So very interesting. Interestingly enough, it seems like the metaverse, they want to create something similar to what you might have seen in the Oasis in Ready Player One, or just a place where there's a world. Now, my son just got an Oculus, and I can tell you that the virtual reality, it very much like fools your brain. We just play like simple games, but it basically is way more advanced than it was in the 90s. But that's just for like one small thing. What their proof of concept with the Zuckerberg video is they want to basically build like a whole interconnecting world. And this is something that various companies have done on the internet. They've been trying to do for a long time, basically create miniature worlds. I think it's a really ambitious project. but I think you'd have to have a unifying thing. I think they mentioned RoboBlocks in here as a model of what they could use, or a model of what the metaverse would look like. I think there is a lot of potential. I think the technology is there. The part that I worry about is in the regular internet, on things like social media, we have a hard time keeping out harassers and trolls and hate speech and things like that. And I wonder how that's going to work in the metaverse, because I sense that there's going to be even less control over what appears there. So that's one of my biggest concerns.
Okay. What do you think, Tanya? You've got a daughter that's growing up. Is she going to grow up in the metaverse?
I'm afraid so. And I have to agree with the author. There's like this one point that really worries me, but not so much from the text. Well, I guess it's text standpoint. But he made a very good point about it being dangerous for one single company to be building that metaverse and for one company making decisions and potentially making wrong decisions. I agree with that, but I would add to that eventually we're going to create reliabilities upon this metaverse. And whenever humankind becomes or has to rely on something that's out of their control, I find that scary. And especially, like he says, if it's just one company doing it and we're having to rely on them to make it work. And I'm thinking of things like, controlling your fridge or starting your car, or I don't know. I don't like the dependencies that come with it.
Yeah, do you think we might get the attack of the house like was in iRobot with Will Smith and everything like that, and you go around your house, it's getting demolished by a robot? Do you think that
I think
process
that's not
there?
so. Yeah, I don't think that's that far fetched, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah.
Jonathan Denwood.
Yes.
My co-host, give me your opinion on this post. You choose all the posts every week, so you've obviously got an opinion on it. Give us it.
Never. I think there's 2 points to this story. Obviously, I've got to bash Mark again. The disease founder of Facebook. A true sociopath. Having him control the virtual world. What could go wrong? The second point is I think it's a very similar situation to smartphones before the iPhone, which was a turning point. You had existing technology, but it was taking all that technology and putting it in a different way that kind of revolutionized. And I think that's the problem with virtual reality. Until you got better hardware, it's linked software with hardware, and both are in synergy with one another. So it won't take off until you got much better hardware. But on the other hand, you also need the games, the virtual reality places. So it'll be interesting to see how it all works out, Andrew.
Perfect. Chris Badgett, you're into learning management systems and people being online, whether it's a live presentation or whether it's a recorded video for people learning. What's your opinion on the metaverse currently?
For learning, I think it's an absolutely amazing democratizing thing. I think it's awesome. And I actually spend a lot of time thinking about the metaverse. I'm a futurist kind of guy. I've been into like the metaverse idea for a long time. And the interesting thing that's happening
is that your virtual glasses?
This is to protect me from the metaverse, actually. I think the metaverse is like becoming popular as a word, but it's like a meme. It's an organizing principle, but what's underneath it, I see it more as a kind of an internet of everything. And the metaverse, the way I see it is, and I heard this from a guy named Sean, it's really just a tipping point in time where we spend more of our lives, kind of like the singularity. It's a tipping point where we spend more of our life on the internet. That's what the metaverse really is. I'm a big fan of like a not just one metaverse, like a many different virtual experiences. The really big idea is interoperability. So how do you take an NFT out of like one metaverse, like a digital asset, whether it's a sword, a CryptoPunk, a course certificate, whatever it is, and then take it over into another metaverse? And then this is where the whole blockchain cryptocurrency thing comes into play in terms of the internet of value. How do we transact? How do we build economies inside the metaverse in an interoperable way where we can relate between these different worlds? Then there'll be the war between the centralized metaverse. Like if Facebook owns one and tries to control it, that's like a centralized monopolistic metaverse. Whereas like a decentralized DAO, which stands for decentralized autonomous organization, which is a real democratic way of running something where no single party has control except for the people with the tokens, which I won't get into all that. It's like the opposite. So the centralized will fight the decentralized. And I don't think we're going to transcend, or we're not going to, it's not like one's going to win, and not everything needs to be decentralized, and not everything needs to be on the internet. Not everything needs to be in person. Just like with learning, I think it's great that people learn in person and physical environments, offline, but I think it's also great that they learn online. So it's not about killing off the past. It's more about transcending and including. Now, with all great technological innovations, like when the car was first invented, people started like running into horses and having accidents and all this stuff. I think the metaverse that we're in, it's really just an underlying layer protocol of the internet. People are going to get hurt. This is where people like Morton are really important with their ethics and whatnot. People are going to get super addicted. People are going to use the ability to be anonymous to spread hate and fear and things like that. And then people are going to, take advantage of others. So embracing the metaverse with ethics and figuring out how to operate in this way is, it's also prone to a lot of danger. So we need to figure out how to be safe, not be super addictive, and develop all these mental health challenges. But inside of all that, there is a lot of opportunity of technological innovation and connecting people and unlocking extreme creativity and innovation.
All right, I'm going to cut that one down now, because that's great. I agree with you in the whole, and we're going to have issues with adult content and whether kids are going to be able to access it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm wondering, Stephanie, whether you actually care what's going on with you with the metaverse.
I would just like to say, Chris, can we like have some beers and sit around a fire and you tell me all about this stuff some more? Because
sure,
you could just listen. Like, I'm so fascinated by this, and I do care, but I feel very like I didn't know what a lot of the words you said even meant. So like, if I wanted to dip a toe into the meta, like what would you say? Like, do I get an Oculus? Like, is that the thing to start playing around with this stuff?
I don't have an Oculus. I just want to say, I think that the thing is, we're already in the metaverse. We're in the metaverse right now having this meeting and this conversation.
That is so meta.
Yeah, it's just the tools are evolving, and yes, virtual reality and 3D and stuff is going to take it to another level, but we're already there. And I would argue almost everybody on this call has already crossed the event horizon, meaning we spend more of our life online than in person, kind of thing. So
it's true. It's on new reality. Spencer, I'm going to give you a minute on this one. Then we're going to move on to a particularly big story in the WordPress space.
The thing that's relevant, I talked to my friend next door about this because we have kids the same age and I have the Oculus Rift 2. And two things. Imagine Neuralink from what Elon Musk is doing as the interface along with the metaverse. Because right now, as John Locke rightly said, the addictive potential for this is gigantic. And I'm saying it from a very cynical point of view, but whether it's the games or the interaction with people with your clothes on or the interaction with people with your clothes off, hint, hint, when you have an interface that will be connected to all of your senses directly instead of through a janky headset, which by the way is not janky, but it's visual and auditory. And now they have pinch controls, so you don't have to hold controllers. I don't have to be too graphic here. The point is, when you can be yourself like you are in a dream, it's going to be a very, very exciting / scary, interesting scenario, because those that are familiar with Ready Player One know there was like a character says, we figured out you can make 150,000 ads before somebody has a seizure and their brain shuts down or something. So let's show them 149,999. And like, that's what Zuckerberg is already calculating in his head.
Yeah, how many ads can they take? Yeah, I get it.
Oh,
I get it.
You mean robot man?
So read between the lines. This is my last sentence. Carmack, I trust, because I was a big player of Doom when it came out. And even on a 640 by 480 display, my friends and I lost 36 to 48 hours at a time without eating, sleeping, or going to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Imagine
Big bang stuff.
When it plugs directly into your brain and your senses, somebody has to be in charge that isn't Zuckerberg, because otherwise it really becomes a problem.
Well, I agree. Right, but I'm going to move on now. I'm going to move on to the biggest story that came out. Really came out about 4:30 p.m. UK time, so quite late, really, US time. Pagely.com, the inventors, the undisputed inventors of managed WordPress, have been acquired by GoDaddy. Did you read the blog post that Joshua Strebel, the owner, and Sally obviously signed off on that because she's the COO? So a really successful man-wife team who put together a great team and, you know, advocated treating your staff well and treating your customers well and charging a lot more money than any other host. And in fact, in the interview with Corey Miller last night, the live interview, the part that I said, Joshua said he used to clown GoDaddy, and now GoDaddy have put on a new hat and said, we want you. We want to be like you, a bit like the Jungle Book. So I'm going to ask Jonathan's opinion on this one first, because I left him out on the other one. Go on.
Well, I don't really know. Well, I do know what to say. You know, I really wish them well. It's, you know, they're great people. I don't know them personally. I have met them a couple of times. I'm sure Chris knows them better. And it's a great day for them. I thought the post was good. In fact, I don't want to bash them. I thought it was there was a particular paragraph that I thought was semi-delusionary. Where Josh remarks that they're going to GoDaddy and they're going to change the culture of GoDaddy. You got to be kidding! You're delusionary, Josh. All I can say. They're going to go to GoDaddy, and it's like the Borg. They're going to be assimilated, and that will be the end of Pagely. Goodbye, Pagely. You know, just like Media Temple. You know, it's like Facebook. It's like kicking a dog. There's only so many kicks I can hand out. You know, I've made my feelings quite clear what I think of GoDaddy. You know, I won't even work with a client that insists that we have to deal with GoDaddy. I just can't waste my life with those people.
All right. Well, that you've had your opinion on that, and I get it, because you know Joshua Strebel is a visionary as far as I'm concerned with WP, you know, WordPress management and all that kind of stuff, and that's the way all hosting should run, in my view. And we should educate customers that good hosting costs good money. You know, Chris, you've got learning management systems. They're quite heavy because of the video content. You know, a site needs good hosting. This is specifically aimed at the WooCommerce market. So I think it's going to be GoDaddy Pro, which is already more expensive, and they're in the managed WordPress space. How do you think this is going to affect your kind of business and the learning management? And you know, Liquid Web must be a little bit looking at it and think, God, we just bought LearnDash. We could have done with Pagely. What do you reckon?
Yeah, there's a lot there. For a learning management system site, you need heavier hosting. And that's why we recommend a small set. It's just resource intensive to have all this dynamic content and interaction, just like e-commerce, but at another level. I'm a Pagely customer. My entire business runs on top of Pagely, and
I bet you're looking forward to GoDaddy being your partner now. I'm sure you're so eager to sample.
I'm going to take a different take. I like to give
Jonathan.
I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I know some very smart people that work at Pagely, or not at Pagely, but at GoDaddy. So I know GoDaddy has had like a kind of a sordid past or whatever, but I know people get a little tribal around the hosting companies of like who they like, who's bad, who's evil, and stuff like that. But I always like suspend my judgment. And the way I think about hosting is I see it as a commodity. It's super important, but I'm paying a hosting company so I don't have to talk to them, right? So that's why I pay the premium to Pagely. And we've had to reach out about a few things here or there, but our site's always up. It doesn't go down. We get high traffic. We're good. So that's it. And I'll pay a premium for that. So I think strategically, it's smart for GoDaddy to have a premium hosting offer. Just if that's the goal, to like kind of cover all the verticals in the market.
Chris, they did this with Media Temple, and it was road death.
You've had your say. You've had your say, Denwood. I'm going to move on to a really focused WP manages people's websites. So you're into managed WordPress. Stephanie, what do you reckon? How's this going to affect your business, or is it going to affect your business? You deal with people with GoDaddy sites, I'm sure.
Yep.
What do you feel? What's your feelings?
Not concerned. I don't really care one way or the other. I think it's easy. Like in my circles, GoDaddy is such a we sort of cringe when we say GoDaddy, because of the hosting and the issues that they've had in so many different ways. They did buy Managed WP a while back, and that was a big deal for me. But so far, everything's been fine with that. That one was a much more scary one for me because we rely on that a lot. But this is like that, the whole thing of like, oh, they sold out kind of, right? So you look at all of your, like celebrities, like, oh, you're doing a Coke commercial, you sell out, and then you think like, if somebody came to you and offered you that much money for like an hour and a half of work, like you would do it in a heartbeat. So it's easy for us to say like, oh, I would never go to the dark side of GoDaddy. But, GoDaddy is a really powerful company. They have a lot of marketing and a lot.
Honestly, Stephanie, I wasn't saying that, Stephanie. I've got no problem about them.
Oh, I'm not saying you were saying it. I'm just saying like, that's the first thing that sort of comes to my mind. Somebody's like, when we see these articles like, oh, they got bought out by GoDaddy, you're just like, oh, you sell out. Like, why would you do it? Like that's my first reaction. And then because there's just like, it's like the, EIG kind of thing too, right? Where as soon as somebody gets bought by them, it's over. It's over, done. But I don't know. I don't put GoDaddy and EIG in the same platform. I think GoDaddy hosting, the regular level of hosting, the stuff that that chick race car driver would always advertise, whatever, Danica Patrick, right? Like that stuff, it's terrible. It doesn't serve our clients well. Their other services are good. They are a big, powerful company though, and they do a lot of other things well. And I think they're trying to come out of this stuff. But as far as how it affects me, zero, this article.
Yeah, and I think the same thing. But, Pagely have a level of customers and GoDaddy want those customers. So they've acquired those customers. Let's not forget, the kind of burnout with founders is between 5, 10, 15 years. These guys have done it in 12 years. So that's right in the middle of 15 years. Well, the one thing I noticed immediately was that Joshua changed his title to former CEO. So straight away, we know he's not the CEO of Pagely anymore. And it's not been announced who is going to be in control. But the point is that all hosts have issues. We know about the SiteGround issues. We know about Google issues. We know about these things that happen with hosts. All hosts have issues. It's the internet. It's the way of the internet. It's fragile. It's a bunch of computers put together, and we're all connected by a dodgy telephone line generally. So from my perspective, as a founder who has sold to a hosting company, it's up to the hosting company to make that business work from now on, because I'm 2 years out, right? So if Elegant Marketplace fails, not down to me. Sorry, I've been out of it for 2 years. And if Pagely fails, Joshua and Sally have got that get out and saying, do you know what? Not my problem. You know, I've sold it, I've done it. So Tanya, you know, GoDaddy, what's it like? You live in Europe, right? You live in the Czech Republic. How do you feel when a GoDaddy client comes to you and says, "Fix my website"?
I don't work with them. The first thing I do is I move them to my servers. Matter of fact, GoDaddy Pro came to me and asked me to do a training webinar or whatever for their clients.
Don't do it. Don't do
on
it.
multilingual sites. And first I was like, oh yeah, cool. You know, that's like great promotion. But then on the other hand, I was like, I can't have it as a policy not to work on GoDaddy and then use their platform for my own marketing, right? So I politely declined and I gave them the reasons. And that was that. The issue I have here with Pagely, and specifically that article and the way they framed it, I wish they were just a little bit more honest and just say that they paid them a shitload of money. Because there is no way in hell. And I've had to deal with GoDaddy on so many occasions, just, you know, from moving people over to my own servers.
What a nightmare.
There is no way in hell that if I had a company like that, and I would be stressing so much that my mission is about my people and my customers or clients, that I would then go and sell to GoDaddy of all companies out there. So this was money. I mean, with Elegant Marketplace, you know, you were about providing value and you know, great plugins, make them accessible to expand the Divi or later on other builders ecospheres, and that's fine. You didn't tout, you know, that it's about making other people successful and you know, having that human aspect on there, even though I know you're a wonderful person and you love human beings, right? But it was a business and you sold it.
Shut up, Stephanie. I'm the nicest guy I know. John Locke, thanks for that, Tanya. I'm a bit embarrassed now. John Locke, quickly your view on this one, because I like the way you know, if anybody reads your Twitter feed and your articles and stuff, I like the way you actually have a deep look into these things. You can read in between the lines. What's your view?
Okay, so I listened to the post status interview that they did right after announcing this. And it sounds like this deal came very quickly. They said that the deal was done in 10 weeks. And it sounds like it wasn't on the table for a long time before that. It was a very sudden thing. GoDaddy approached Pagely from what it sounds like. It wasn't the other way around. They indicated that GoDaddy wants their help in building something. And then they were also interviewing Becker Rice. I don't know if it has to do with an enterprise level e-commerce solution that would be competing with something like Magento, maybe. I don't want to speculate too far, but he did say that GoDaddy specifically reached out to them to help GoDaddy build something. Because let's face it, like GoDaddy, a lot of their customers are kind of the lower third of the market. The same kind of stuff that Wix and Squarespace and are chasing. And I think that they saw an opportunity to get more enterprise level clients, but they needed that talent and the engineers and the leadership from Josh in order to get that done. Now, he also said that Sally was going to take some time off. So Josh is going to stay on and guide that for, you know, however long, year and a half, 2 years. But, you know, 2021 in retrospect is going to be seen as the year in WordPress when a lot of the biggest companies sold to the monolithic companies. And, you know, I understand burnout. And, you know, wanting to cash out and then do something down the line, like when your contract expires. But I think that leaves room for other people to come in, because in a way, I don't like the idea of just a handful of super large corporations like EIG and GoDaddy owning everything. I think that there should be some other companies out there. So
I totally agree with you, Spencer. Do you think this is connected in any way with a WP Engine type IPO thing and GoDaddy saying we can't build it, let's buy it?
If you look at the pricing on Pagely.com, you'll see exactly your answer. It was several years ago when Josh and his wife made the decision, and they were very public about it at the time. I remember it because I pursued the same angle myself. They decided to go upstream instead of downstream. So they realized they have no way they can compete with racing to the bottom against Bluehost and GoDaddy and all the rest of it, and HostGator and so forth. So look at their pricing. $4.99 a month, $9.99 a month, $2,500 a month, or up. So they went, again, this is where for marketing automation, I go upstream to the CRM customers who want to be in WordPress versus not necessarily exclusively, but focusing as much energy trying to compete racing to the bottom. Why? Because the world we're in right now is there's 3, 4, 5 major verticals of people who are acquiring all the plugins and all the software to bulk them together like Disney Plus and Netflix and offer them as part of just sign up for, not pointing fingers, but sign up for Liquid Web Nexus and everything will be included, or sign up for GoDaddy and everything will be included. That's the future of WordPress, and Automatic's doing it with Jetpack. Pagely's selling offered the opportunity for GoDaddy to do a metaverse rebrand. We're Facebook, but now we're a corporate enterprise space because it's called Pagely, and we're charging $2,500 a month. You know how many people they got to acquire to get $2,500 a month? 2,500 people versus one corporate client.
It's an amazing purchase, but we're just about halfway through now, so we're going to visit some of our sponsors, and a couple of them are actually in the panel today. So thank you, sponsors, for sponsoring us, and we'll be back in a moment. Right, we're back with you. That was an interesting conversation around Pagely and things that are going on around in the internet. Now, we've got a couple of things that I want to really visit. One of them is a new block plugin. We always like to talk a little bit about Gutenberg and is it trapping you in? WordPress trying to take over the page builder market? Are the third-party plug-in people like Editor Plus and everybody else in their Cadence and blocks, whatever, are you going to be stuck in it? So what do you feel about this block plugin display post formats? And isn't it about time that actually Gutenberg allowed us to do custom post types and display them anywhere in the anywhere in the page or anywhere in the site, basically? What do you reckon, team? Which one shall I go for? I think it's...
Can I say something quick?
Yeah.
Well, I think, before we went live, when we had our chat, Andrew, I think the biggest problem in Gutenberg is, which you pointed out, is
lock-in.
Apart from it taking literally freaking 3 years to get anywhere, the only thing that makes Gutenberg workable is you got to use a host of third-party plugins to save the bloody thing. So you've ended up relying on a load of third-party plugins for fundamental functionality of something that should have been built about 2 years ago. That to me is the fundamental problem and the interesting part of this story, Andrew.
Well, I agree with you, but you will, we've grown up in, Stephanie and Tanya and I and even Spencer have grown up with Divi, and even Chris, you've had to build your own LMS Divi module, to make it work properly. And over the 5 years that Divi's been around, or 4 years that Divi's been around as the visual builder, or as a block builder, and then now in the visual builder, Nick has basically integrated the best of the best into core. Chris, do you think that's going to happen with WordPress? They're going to see all these cadence blocks, they're going to see Editor Plus and go, do you know what, guys, we're going to put our new block plug-in display post formats, just like Divi have actually done that with their with Divi display logic, you know, Divi conditionals. They've literally just been doing that, and I've owned the plugin for 4 years. You know, so they took 4 years to catch up to actually do conditionals. How long will Gutenberg take to do this post displays and then conditional showing? Like there's a conditional block plugin out there, and how long will they take to integrate an LMS like yours within a block?
That's a great question. This kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier about the tension between a centralized metaverse and like a decentralized one. So I look at WordPress the same way, where you have this decentralized network of innovators making themes and plugins and all this stuff. So the network, the decentralized network, is more powerful than a centralized group like Automatic, and the way the current WordPress project is kind of core is governed. In my view, that should become a different type of organization, which we could talk about. But I think that's what makes it look like WordPress is moving slow, because it is. A centralized group of innovators can never move as fast as a decentralized network of an entire community online. So what WordPress does is they gobble up the best ideas, kind of like we saw in the page builder market, to the Gutenberg. But then it's going to be, then they're slower because they're not as focused as like an Elementor or a Beaver builder. So it takes a while to catch up. But eventually, because WordPress is still more decentralized than a single page builder company, the innovation will tip to the point that it feels like it's caught up, and now it's snowballing and they get to leverage the WordPress community. For post format specifically, I think this is actually one of the biggest opportunities for WordPress, because when a creator or a business can look at WordPress and, you know, this is just an image that I want to publish and push out there. The way people think as a creator is like, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go to Instagram. You know, I don't think about WordPress. But if WordPress has obviously mastered the blog post, but if WordPress can really innovate on images, like image only posts, videos, audios, in product development and in viral like entrepreneurship, there's always this thing called a social object. And what WordPress can do is, if they just innovate and allow people to create, to feel like they can express just as well with an image, with a GIF, with a video. There's more. It goes on. Courses are another type of post or block of content in a way of thinking about it, or object.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, but that's kind of how I see that.
Brilliant. Now, MrsDivi.com. You're going to have to change your name, aren't you? MrsGutenberg.com, maybe.
Are you guys still married, by the way, Tanya?
Yeah.
Mr. Divi and you?
Kind of.
Is it like the Bezos, where you took half of?
I'm not going to share my secrets. Hello. Yeah, but you know what? I have to be honest, and I kind of kick myself for this. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old, you know, to learn new tricks. But I'm, in fact, so focused on Divi. I mean, I've toyed around with Gutenberg and with the blocks and stuff, but it's, I don't know. I miss Divi, and I just can't get warm with Gutenberg. I mean, I understand the basics of it. I know how to use it. I just don't enjoy using it. So, I guess my opinion on that wouldn't be too relevant tonight.
All right. So Stephanie, you publish for other people on their behalf. How often do you think you'd use a Gutenberg block like this that would allow you to do custom post types or post types, or, you know, publish at will or whatever? What you know, you're not a Gutenberg person, you're a Divi person, right?
I am. I'm certainly not anti, but I'm a little like what Tanya's saying, is I'm just sort of in that ecosystem. I love watching what's happening and what's coming. And I think like some of the comments that have been made, you know, we see innovation is exciting and it comes at a cost. You know, and it's like, so the folks that came up with all, you know, like all the different builders, you know, have developed all these things, and it's like small little things are big, exciting releases. And then
Yeah.
you get to the point where now we've got so many of these things that we're not satisfied. We're chasing a new big high. So nobody's going to be satisfied with small, little, tiny updates. For Gutenberg, they've got to nail it, and they've got to go big for all of those things to really impress people or wow people, because otherwise they get them all already in other places. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying watching this journey, this Gutenberg like progression of how things are growing. And I think it's awesome. And I think it's the future of WordPress for sure. I mean, it's going to be so powerful and really good. But
it is, but we've got the lock-in issues, haven't we? We always get criticized being Divi users that you're locked in, it's shortcode driven, or Elementor you're locked in, it's not shortcode driven, but you're still locked in. And if you're using a third-party extension or plugin or something where it's not in core, and that's why a lot of the Divi stuff, you know, and Elementor, you know, they've put in stuff that's was a plugin, and now they've put it into their core offering. I think that's what's going to happen with Gutenberg. They're going to see these things. They'll do a Divi and they'll see these things and say that's in core. But the problem is that Gutenberg is touted as the fastest way to, or fastest website. So, you know, Divi put all of these things in, threw the kitchen sink in, and when said, well, actually, we need a bigger plug hole, you know, because we need to speed these things up. And then they've got the Divi optimizations, Elementor doing the same thing with optimizations. Is it going to, with all the third-party extensions for Gutenberg and WordPress core not catching up, is it going to be a lock-in situation, Spencer Foreman?
As far as who's going to win, I won't bet, but I will tell you one of the things that I take from this that's related to your question. Post formats is no longer important. The thing is, all of the tools that we had put our hopes on and dreams on along the way, like the customizer and the template hierarchy, which is still relevant, post formats, were all ways to band-aid the problem when you're using HTML, CSS, PHP of how to fix themes that didn't have the capability baked in. As soon as you move to one page builder or another, including Gutenberg, a post format is irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. In fact, it's confusingly irrelevant. It's like talking about, oh, that tool you needed to fix the wooden wagon wheel with your cart because you just bought a Tesla. Well, just because they have wheels, it's not the same thing. It's not the same tool. So I think I'm self-promoting a little bit. I was talking about this on the WP Minute this week of why don't we have a Canvas theme? If we had a Canvas theme for Gutenberg, and then Divi, for example, so Mrs. Divi can feel comfortable, and Stephanie and anybody else can feel comfortable with Gutenberg, where they say it's not so hot, and I agree. If you had a standardized way of doing things that worked with the other tools, then everybody could be happy. You use Divi to make your blocks. You use Oxygen to make your blocks, but the blocks cover the things that post formats used to need to do, because it doesn't matter what's inside of it, it's a block. And I think that's the bottom line, because as a guy who raised 3 kids, I, like any parent, had a basement full of all kinds of toys. You know the toy that works best? Legos. Why? Because it doesn't matter if they were made in 1940 or 1960 or 2020, they all fit together. It's when you mix in the wood toys with the Lego blocks, with the metal toys, that everything gets ugly. And that's where WordPress is right now, in a transition of which things can we throw away and which things can we focus on.
I get it. That's really, really a good point. Now I'm going to jump back to one, and I'm going to have John Locke in here. This is tech, John, and it's Zillow. Anyone read that article and have any feelings about how Zillow kind of used an AI algorithm and it mucked them up a bit to the tune of what, 200 million? John Locke.
It was a lot. There were hundreds of people that ended up losing their jobs. The biggest thing about this, basically, they were using machine learning to try and predict when to buy homes and basically flip them. And the margin of error was very small. They had to increase the prices on the homes just enough to where people would buy the homes at the right price and predict where they were going to be in 6 months. There is a person that basically, I actually saw this somewhere else. There's a person on Twitter that basically said what they were doing. When homes are sold in the US, the realtor will use a sample of different homes in the area. They'll say, these are homes that recently sold for these prices. And this is what your home can sell for. So what Zillow was doing through automatic bidding, they were using the data from people that would be, let's say I'm in Sacramento, I'm looking to move to, we'll say like Boise, Idaho. It can see like where different people are searching. It can see what homes they're looking at and what they can afford. So what it would do is it would calculate where to buy these homes up because they're just flush with cash, kind of like BlackRock Capital. And like not the first 9 homes it would buy at the market price. And then the 10th one it would buy for 30,000 more. And why it would do that is basically to push that average up. So they're artificially inflating the market, pushing people out of, an already inflated market with housing where everybody is unless you're super rich, you're kind of struggling to buy a home now. So in a way, I'm kind of glad that this failed, because if it had succeeded, the consequences would have actually been a lot worse, I think, overall. But the goal was to basically use machine learning to flip houses using data that they collected from users. And the result is the machine learning, it needed to have razor sharp accuracy, and it didn't. And as a result, they had a big loss and many people lost their jobs. But I don't like this precedent for tech. It's really dangerous, and it's going to end up having some big effects if something like this was successful.
Right, I get that. And we're at the stage where I had a really interesting meeting with Heather Renz and her husband, Matthew, the other week. I met them in London. It was great. We had some cocktails and had a good old chinwag for about 3 hours. He's into machine learning and AI in a big way. If you just Google him, Matthew Renz, it's totally interesting. But we're not at the stage now where we can completely rely on algorithms and AI. Look at Google. Look at the search results we get. It's just crazy that sometimes it's wrong. Look at the situation with SiteGround not being able to be indexed. There's something wrong there. That's an automatic process has broken somewhere, whether it's SiteGround's place, whether it's Google's place. Google actually in Europe at 11 a.m. this morning until about 1 p.m. lunchtime in Europe and UK, the Eastern servers were down. You couldn't get onto YouTube, you couldn't get onto Google. So there might be a tie-in in that, because the SiteGround situation is only in Europe, as far as I'm aware. But with using AI, and obviously we've got Bertha.ai, we insist it's a writing assistant. It won't, there are other products out there that are saying this will write content for you. It's a complete fabrication. We say it's a writing assistant. You can use it as an assistant. And I think Matthew was saying to me that people should just rely on AI to help them get to where they need to go, rather than let them just let the AI drive them in that direction. We're too far away from allowing AI. And Chris Badgett, you're nodding here. You're into this kind of thing as well. What's your view?
Yeah, I think that the humans and the machines need to work together. Sure. If it's not obvious, I'm like a super optimistic guy. So if we look at something like the truck driving industry, which is going to be disrupted by driverless trucks, when this kind of innovation happens, you still need humans. They're just going to be doing different things. And there's a whole debate and a lot of nuance to that. But if you look back through the arc of history, people figure it out. Like there's something else of higher value that the human focuses on. Just like us as website builders, the website allows us to communicate at scale. So there's the human and the machine there. When it comes to real estate here, I think this is a great example of there's like a philosophical thing where if you train an AI or a machine to get as much gold as possible, eventually it's like killing all the humans and taking it out of people's teeth or whatever because you told it to get the gold, as much gold. I think that's what happened here with the data science and the real estate with Zillow. Was the program got out of control, right? And it went a little too far. And there is a place for the human in real estate transactions. As old school and archaic as some of the systems are in real estate, a local area knowledge around pricing is important, and it's not something that can totally be figured out with a Bloomberg machine like automatic trading in the stock market. Some of the best investors, they use a combination of creativity and leveraging big data. And I love your analogy, Andrew, about Bertha being an assistant. Technology is a great enabler, but it's the most powerful when it's assisting the human. And what the human does is the creative, the imagination, the perception of patterns that a machine can't detect. When those things work together, it can be a beautiful thing. It can also be an ugly thing. But I think that's there. Big data has a place in society. Algorithms have a place in society. Automation has a place in society. But the best things always come from the combination with the human.
Brilliant. Stephanie, what's your view on it? How do you feel about AI in general and the fact that Zillow bought a bunch of houses, lost money on it, 100 people lost their jobs? What's that all about?
Well, I don't want people to lose their jobs, but that they took a gamble. We would, that could have gone either way. That could have worked. I mean, this is new technology, so they're a big giant company, and I'm not sure all of their motives are fully honest and sincere. I mean, I will say, like, I love Zillow memes. Like, I love the jokes about Zillow. They're so funny. Just Google Zillow memes and also maybe watch the YouTube video that I put in the chat because it's the SNL skit about
maybe they're making them themselves so that they've got NFTs. They've got Zillow NFTs. What do you reckon? I
doubt it. But I'm not super involved in this. My family has a real estate company, and so I know like their perception of them. But it, like Chris said, there's a human being still has power in that industry. That's not, if you are a McDonald's employee, you might be in trouble pretty soon. Like your job might be in danger, but I don't think right now that like realtors are running a risk. I hate that the calculated risk that somebody made cost all of those people their jobs. Like that's a bummer, but
yeah, what do you do? Tanya, you just moved into a new house, 6 months ago, 8 months ago? Did you use AI to find it?
Oh my goodness. We've been here. This is going to be our third Christmas in this house.
Oh my God, 3 years. That's how behind I am. Blimey.
Did we use AI? You know what? I'm not even sure because at some point I was just so fed up with our living situation that I said to my fiance, you need to present a house. And so that's what he basically did. I'm pretty sure
love that attitude.
I'm pretty sure he went through whatever sites, but actually,
I know this guy. I've met this guy. He would just think, okay, I'll present a house, right? I'll do what I'm told. Great.
Present a house there.
Present a house, brilliant. Spencer Foreman.
But just a second.
All right.
This cup that I'm drinking from is actually from my best friend in Boston, and not Boston. She's on Cape Cod, and she's a real estate agent there. And I was thinking about her when I read the Zillow article. About how AI messes with her job, like AI messes with so many messes with our jobs in so many areas. And am I happy that this happened to Zillow, the company? Yes. Am I happy for the employees? No, of course not. But I think there's just places where AI does not have a place. And real estate to me is one of those things, because when I think about, all the houses I've ever owned, they came with such huge emotional baggage, be it positive or negative, doesn't matter, that I just don't want AI messing with that.
Yeah, there's no judgment, is there, to take in the emotive?
Zero.
It's like buying a car.
Right.
There's an emotional response when a friend of mine's just bought a Mustang E-Tech or whatever it is, and we played golf together the other day, he couldn't concentrate on his golf because he was so excited about having this new EV car, because it's emotional. I'm going to have this nice big. He's got, you know, he's got 2 kids, 2 brand new kids, basically 2 years old and 6 months old, and it's going to be big enough to fit everything in, including his golf clubs, without having to take him out every single time. So there are emotions involved in physical purchases. So yeah, there is. But what they were doing with what they were doing, though, they were basically trying. You know, there's FX algorithms out there. There's big data used to calculate what share prices are going to be next year, you know, or next moment. So they were using people's homes and properties speculatively. And that's I think where it went wrong, because you can never, you know, and also we're still in a pandemic and people weren't looking to move, you know, and all these emotional things were going. I'm not sure we've had your opinion on this, John, because we've got about 5 minutes to go towards the end of the show before we move on to
let Spencer remark, because Spencer's got, you know, he was a property developer before. I'd be interested in Spencer's.
Well, I was going to ask Spencer, but we've only got 5 minutes. But go on, Spencer, go on then. You can go.
Thanks. Wow. Thanks for your intense desire in my opinion on this topic.
Well, you know, he does.
Rough,
you do tend to go on like a dripping tap sometimes, but carry on. Wow. We need some amusement, Spencer.
This is a data problem.
Go fuck off, will you?
Don't worry.
The problem is crap in, crap out. The problem isn't the AI. The problem is that you can't use AI to buy and sell a property when there's a million things you need to find out about the property in person. If they had actually sent people out to the homes to inspect them, and then they had a data input system for a real inspector that would have affected the valuation, then they would have acted like a real person. Asking a machine to base its assumptions on 50 to 70% of the required data being missing is ridiculous, because I bought and sold hundreds of houses and buildings over the years. Not one of them did I ever buy without actually visiting the property or having somebody do it for me. So the whole thing is ridiculous to begin with, because it's nothing to do with machine learning. It's to do with the fact that nobody programmed the machine with the data to act like an intelligent person would.
It is still data, though. It is still data that machines could capture.
There's no data, but there's no data that's relevant, because the data. I actually
think sometimes the emotional stuff, when you're talking about determining value, the emotions are what skew the data. You know, my folks, they like will just crack up all the time, because in one transaction, the person selling the house thinks it's worth so much more, and the one that they're buying, they think it should be bought. You know, those are just emotional reactions. That's not data. So the idea of having data where things can be on an even playing field, where
data is like condition of the property data. For example, when I would buy and sell houses, and go in there, you go in the basement and you take a look, and you can see, for example, there's termite damage, or there's water leaking out of this, or when you're standing on the back porch, you see the smokestack from the nuclear power plant in view of your house. Those things don't show up with the data that's on Zillow. But when a person goes to visit the property.
Yeah, no, it's not there yet. But I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be a human being doing this. I agree 100% that it's the data in, but just like the way that the data is captured could be done at some point.
Yeah, if they have a human go visit the property and then fill out a standardized form. Because that's, by the way, Stephanie, I don't disagree with your point, but what I'm saying is that's the positive future of this.
Right.
The people who right now are thinking like the machines are going to take over, guess what? Focus your energy on the aspects of machine and automation, learning and activation and so forth that have to be done by humans. Even, for example, in the power lines or in the solar panels, they need real people to interact with human beings at a certain level, or to be physically present, because there's no mechanical way to do that until
it's a shame that GoDaddy don't realize that.
Oh,
I mean, this is the upside of all of this. Is that
completely irrelevant comment from my co-host there. I might have to mute him for the rest of the show. Spencer, I'm going to cut you there. I totally agree. I think the emotion. You know, we've got a couple of estate agents out here, and I think you guys pay quite a lot of commission to your realtors, don't you? Like 8% or something.
5 to 6%.
5 or 6%. Do you know what the average is in the UK?
Sounds like 8%.
1.25%.
Oh, yeah, well, but there's a difference.
You got to take into
in our economy, the brokers do. I'm not saying that it's worth it, but I'm saying the brokers do have a huge influence on selling, because there's a big FSBO market, for sale by owner. And it's
Right.
pretty fair to say that unless you're giving away the property, that the market is skewed because the brokers control it, that they don't give attention to the properties that aren't being sold by brokers.
Well, of
That's
course.
what happens.
But Andrew, just for our listeners, what you got to take into account in the US, Andrew, most people when selling a house, they don't employ a lawyer. It's actually the agent that draws up the contract. And
Right.
there's no, in most transactions, Andrew, there's no lawyer involved. That is dealt by the agent.
Got you. Well, most conveyancing is under £500, to be honest. It's not based on the price of the house.
I don't know what kind of lawyers you were using in the UK. But my bills were all substantially a bit higher.
Yeah,
than
we
that.
we all have to do the lawyers on. So you basically just for the benefit of US viewers and British viewers that are listening to, and European viewers, is basically you do the exchange and then you sign the contracts. So you sign contracts and then you do the exchange. When you do the exchange, all the money gets transferred from the lawyer's money account, their client account, and goes into the other account. And it's a bit of a nightmare, and it never takes less than 6 weeks, no matter what you do, even if you're an alleged cash buyer. Right, moving on. We're gonna just spend 2 minutes on this because I think it's worth it, and I think because we've got Tanya here, Stephanie here, me here, and Chris here, and John, who and also Spencer. You've got loads of competitors. Chris Lemmer wrote an article. The market is never too crowded. You've got to ignore the fact that it's peppered with affiliate links. That's just the way Chris is. But because he writes every single day, there's a lot of stuff that he has to come up with. And I think that within this, and Jonathan chose this post, I think it's relevant, and I think we need to basically acknowledge that the market is never too crowded. So, Spencer, what was your view? And I know you last one to talk, but I want your view first.
I can say this with poking Chris in the ribs. He has to churn out a lot of content, so he throws a lot of stuff against the wall to see if it sticks. I think his topic is a interesting one to think about, but the premise of his conclusion is ridiculous. Here's why. The things that are happening have nothing to do with being too many players. The things that are happening have to do with the fact that somebody comes up with a completely different way to solve the problem. Again, using my metaphor of there's a whole market of people who make wagons pulled by horses. There's already 100 of them. The market's never too crowded. Well, guess what? When the car comes along, or the electric car, you're not offering the same kind of a solution. You're offering a completely different solution to the pain point. The pain point is, in this case, let's say forms. You need to collect data from a user. Well, yeah, sure, Gravity Forms can try to keep up, but boy, oh boy, was that long in the tooth. When Fluent Forms comes into place, or Ninja Forms, they're doing something very, very different in many ways. And people are moving from the old wagon to the new car or the electric car. And then what happens is Gravity Forms either dies or has to change their actual format, which, by the way, they did. So, I mean, if he added a little clarification here, that's what I would recommend the clarification be, because there's a lot of things that we used to study in law and otherwise that were like false premises, right? Ergo proct or hoc or proct or whatever, some Latin word for it. But this does not necessarily follow from that. And in this particular case, I guarantee you, in 2 years, if we're all still here, we're going to be talking about the new 3D virtual Gutenberg feature, this or that. We're not going to be talking about blocks. And that's why there's always room. There's room for innovation. Well,
there is. Chris, you entered a crowded marketplace. How's it going?
It's going good. It was 7 years ago that we launched Lifter LMS, and competitors in the market drives innovation. So I think it's actually really good and healthy, for example, that LearnDash is in the hands of Chris Lemma, where it's just going to further innovation in the LMS space. But to Spencer's point, we entered the market and people in their mind thought of membership, e-commerce, and LMS as being separate things, course creation. So day one, when we launched our product and designed it, we put all those things together. So that was our innovation into the space.
Sure.
But because that didn't exist, we entered, and that was one of our main selling points. So that's just where innovation comes from.
Perfect. And we were innovated upon with Divi, right? And Elementor innovated again, and then Oxygen innovated again, and Brizey innovated again. We're inundated with page builders, right? I'm not going to take any more people's opinion on this, because I think we've got where we are. I like the fact that Lemma writes some stuff. I'm going to be lucky enough to be meeting him at where are we going, Stephanie? What's going on?
Florida, the recurring revenue retreat.
We're going to the recurring revenue retreat in Florida, so that's next week, and we're going to be interesting a lot of people. You're not going there, Chris, are you? You there, Mr. Paget?
I'm not at that one. I'd love to go to one of those at some point down the road, but yeah.
We'll let you know. Just keep in touch with Stephanie, and she tells you everything. Right. So we're gonna shut this down. Thanks to the guests. I really appreciate.
Well, we need our recommendations of the week.
We're gonna have with that. I haven't finished, John. I'm the host. I'm running this show. Shush your mouth. We're gonna shut this down, but before we shut this down, we're going to ask people for recommendations. So if you haven't got one, or you didn't know that you needed a recommendation, particularly the new people here, I'm going to go straight away to Spencer Foreman, because he's got a recommendation already.
I do. Today, I'm going to recommend a product which is really, really worth everybody checking out. It's WPCal.io. It is essentially two fellas knocked off Calendly and made it a WordPress plugin. It's missing one critical feature, but I spoke to them about it this morning, and you can see the critical feature that's missing, and I'll explain to you very quickly. The thing that it does is it makes it possible to have in your WordPress stack the Calendly capability of onboarding somebody for a call, right? Not for a paid booking, but like, I want to have a call with Spence. So if you were to go to WPLaunchify.com, you can check that out with the button. But the one feature they don't have is when somebody, let's say, fills out a form using, let's say, Fluent Forms or Gravity Forms, to just pass the information that you've already collected in your own way to the booking plugin that WP-Cal does. So I don't have to ask them for it twice. I suggested if they do that via a URL string, a hook, a custom post type, all the things that make all these other plugins now play nice, this would be my plugin of the year, because getting off of a third-party service, even a good one like Calendly, and putting it in your WordPress stack so it works with your other plugins is everything I've been screaming about for 2 years here. And I think this one in particular, I want to say something too. If you need to sell stuff in a booking, check out Amelia. But Amelia is like a framework, and this is a tool. And I tried setting up Amelia only to be disappointed that I was left like daylight dollar short. This thing, 5 minutes, get off Calendly, good to go. I'm very excited about it.
Brilliant. John Locke.
Obviously.
Recommendation. And you're on mute.
My recommendation is WPLivestreams.com, and that is a collection of different live streams in the WordPress space. I think it's from different formats like podcasting and YouTube and Facebook. So go check it out. Perfect.
Stephanie Hudson, what you got for us?
I am recommending today a new app called Crisp. It's KRISP.ai, and it is audio. It cleans up your audio in and out. And they have a free version that's good for a few hours a month, something like that. I have my assistant has horrendous audio, and I was getting a terrible headache every time we'd be co-working together. And I just put this in, and boom, it doesn't, it's like when you're on the airplane and you click on your noise canceling headphones, and it's just like, it does that exactly. And it also blocks out, like, if you've got kids in the background, a dog barking, people making noise in the room, like I've tested it on a bunch of things. It's awesome. I went with the premium because I just use it all the time, and it's not very expensive. A few bucks a month.
Andrew's going to use it on me.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing that can cancel you out. And talking of you, what's your recommendation?
It's a service. It's Flatcom.
Put your mouth by the mic. People might be able to hear it.
All right, it's Flatcom. He's been really grouchy today, folks, hasn't he? Even I feel even sorry for poor old Spencer. Flatcom. they provide almost 6 million vectors, icons, all sorts of stuff, and most of it's free, and it's pretty good. So go to flatcon.com.
Brilliant. And if someone else can put them in Slack for me, because I'm
Yes,
on a laptop without
That
logging
URL
into
didn't
Slack.
work for me, Jonathan. What is it again?
It's
FLAT?
FLATICON.com.
Oh, flat icon.
Flat icon. Yeah, that's the one. Tanya, I've given you enough time to think about a recommendation. What do you got?
Oh, that's easy. Since we skipped the topic, I'm going to recommend WPML to anybody who's thinking about.
We
doing
haven't
their
skipped the
sites.
topic. We haven't skipped the topic because what we do is we end this podcast live. It's about an hour, and then we go on to extra, and that's where you're coming in. That's why
I see. Okay,
But
well,
you
in
can
that
still recommend
case-
it. You can still recommend it. It's not a problem.
Well, yeah, since we're live, I'm going to recommend it because I know a bunch of my translation buddies are watching. Hi, everybody. Love you so much.
Brilliant.
Yeah, if you're going to translate your website, please do it with WPML because it is the mother, and I can tell you as a translator and as a web designer, it's the
Well, don't give away too much, Tanya. We want them to go on the bonus content, for God's sake, Tanya.
Go on the bonus content, and I will explain why it is superior.
Perfect. Right, who hasn't? Everybody's given their recommendation, right? No, Chris hasn't. My goodness. Carry on, Chris.
Since we were talking about the metaverse today, if anybody wants to go deep, I heard a great podcast last weekend, and the episode is called WTF is a Metaverse. On the breakdown is the name of the podcast.
Like
and it just kind of blew my mind, and I've already pretty far down this rabbit hole, so I'll put a link to that in the chat. So thanks for touching on one of my favorite topics.
I think we have to have a learn with Chris session, definitely, whether it's on here or not, and just talk about the metaverse. I think it's great. Your knowledge and your enthusiasm behind it is fantastic. I haven't got a link today because I've got a life hack for freelancers. If you're running out of work or you haven't got a lot of work, but you've got customers, announce that you're going to an event far away, like America, like Florida, like Stephanie and I are going to attend a week before you go, and you will be inundated with work.
Yeah, it always works, doesn't it?
So just every 3 months, go on holiday. Even if you don't go on holiday, you're going to get shit tons of work and maybe Spencer knows I'm only playing with him, but it's just crazy how when you announce you go away and boom, you get tons of work. So it's great. My team are going to be so busy while I'm away. It's brilliant. So that's the end of this podcast. But what this particular hour, what we forget always is that we've got WP-Tonic.com/newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter. I write the main content. John puts it all together. Stick around now for the extra content. And if our panel can't stick around, apart from, of course, Tanya, because you need to, it's all about translation. And thank you very much for taking the time to, one, be here, and to the viewers and listeners for listening as well. I really appreciate it.